in most Western countries, we don't really study China's past, but in truth, China was as important as the Greeks or Egyptians. In this video, I'll share with you 7 fun facts about China's ancient past. Since how they used characters to communicate with spirits, up to how they believed there were 10 suns and not only one. 1. Origin of writing. I'm sure you've seen this very complicated writing system used in China until today, and it was actually invented around 3,000 years ago. It was written on this. Can you guess what this is? No, it's not clay like the one used in the Middle East, and it's also not stone like the one used by the Egyptians. That's actually a bone. It's turtle belly. You may recall how the Mesopotamians invented writing for administration, but the Chinese were more creative. They invented it in order to communicate with the dead. You heard it. It was a game of questions and answers like the current Ouija board, but instead made with turtle belly bone. First, the person would pose a question. Then they would make the ritual, and to finish they would write using Chinese characters the answer that the spirits gave. And if you think they found only 1 or 2 of these bones, that's not quite the case. They actually found more than 100,000 cracked bones like this, with or without inscriptions. To give you an idea, the oldest cracked bone found dates to around 8,000 years ago, while the first Chinese dynasty started around 3,500 years ago. This means this ritual kept being done for around 5,000 years straight. And there's something even stranger. If we check the back of the bones, we see they are full of holes and burns. It's by investigating the bones like this that today we know exactly how this ritual of magic was made. And this brings us to our second fun fact, grim rituals with spirits. And this ritual was made in a quite peculiar way. They first would cut the connections between the belly bone and the shell. And then in the back part of the bone, they would make a small hole. They then would heat up a metal bar to high temperatures and stick it into that hole, making the bone crack. The crack would always have a shape that resembles a T. That's why until today the Chinese character for divination still has this shape. It was the interpretation of this crack which told us what the spirit said. In the case of royal divination, the king himself would interpret it. Can you guess how important this ritual was for a king to take part in it? That's just an example of how the spiritual world was important for the ancient Chinese. But if you think they only did this kind of inoffensive ritual, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Check this fun fact number 3. Many people were sacrificed. Imagine you woke up with a pain in your tooth 3,000 years ago. Being a very powerful king, what would you do? Would you call a doctor? Of course not. You tell just them to kill 100 people. Their sacrifice is sure to calm down the spirits which cause your pain. Do you remember from school how the Mayans or Aztecs were really violent and sacrificed people? That was a common trend among ancient civilizations, and of course the Chinese would be a part of it. Just considering the final capital of the Shang dynasty, around the royal tomb, people found more than 2,500 pits. Each pit contained around 10 to 15 skeletons. So 2,500 times 15 gives you more than 30,000 people that were sacrificed to the royal tomb like that. Sacrifice would happen if the king felt a pain on his shoulder, if they were building up a temple, or even doing daily worship. An example of sacrifice found in the bones would be 100 cups of wine, 300 sheep, cows and pigs, and 100 people. 4. Long hair. In Western society, it's common to associate long hair with women and short hair with men. But back in ancient China, the long hair was such a symbol of masculinity that you could even have your hair cut in case you committed a crime. We can see this tradition within the Chinese script itself. For example, the characters for Elder-in-Chief were both originally depictions of people with long hair. And even the character for man itself was originally a stick figure in a hair bun, because if a man is an honorable man, of course he must take care of his own hair. This tradition is actually older than Confucianism, but later this philosophy stated that hurting your own body was a way of disrespecting the life your parents gave you. Therefore, cutting your hair was never seen as a good thing, because it equated hurting yourself. And some kinds of disrespect with your parents could even be punished by death. 5. Many wars. Imagine you and your people are fighting other countries for decades now. You as a leader as well as your philosophers know that it's not the best situation to be sending your men to die at war every year, so you like to bring about a new era of peace. Which choice would you make to make that into reality? That's simple. You would make more war. Because if you subdue or eliminate everybody that thinks differently from you, a new era of harmony and peace can come about. Everybody would be under you and they will respect and act as you say. Isn't that beautiful? It's just that, every grown-up person should know that whenever the speech is too kind or promising, it usually delivers quite the opposite. Just like most totalitarian states or imperialist countries did genocides in the name of a better world. Wars and bloodshed were always present in China's history, but an especially bloody period was the one known as the Warring States, in which states were sending their youth every year to die at war to lengthen their territories, and that lasted for about 250 years. However, this period was important for the Chinese to develop a sense of diplomacy and to learn how to deal with military and political questions. It's similar to how modern Europe had to develop international conventions on how to deal with other countries, which are still used until today in international relations. 6. Technology. 4,000 years ago, the Chinese were able to make ceramics known as eggshell ceramics because they were so thin as an eggshell. Can you guess the amount of technical knowledge one has to know in order to do a ceramic like this? They were also really good with metallurgy. Until today, it's quite difficult to make objects made of only one metal, but back in ancient China 6,000 years ago, the Chinese were already able to make a bell made almost of pure copper. 3,500 years ago, the Chinese were already so skillful with bronzes that they were able to make a bronze piece like this, weighing almost 1 ton, being 4 feet tall, and being the largest piece of bronze from the whole ancient world. And since the furnaces were small in the Shang capital, it's supposed that to make a bronze like this, there needed to be at least 1,000 men working together. Can you see how the ancients were much more technological than we tend to think? 7. The 10 suns. In ancient China, people believed there were 10 suns and not only one. Each day a different sun crossed the sky until the cycle of 10 days was completed. That's why the ancient Chinese week also had 10 days, each named after one sun, and the king also was named after one of the suns. There's an important passage in Chinese mythology in which the 10 suns appear together in the sky. Then a Chinese hero points his bow and arrow to the sky and shoots the extra suns, leaving only one. Did you see how ancient China can be interesting? If you'd like to know more about the curious history of how the oracle bones were discovered, just click on the video that's going to appear right now.